Today is the coldest day of this winter, and Russia as well attacked Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Half of the city is without heating, without electricity. It's minus 20 outside. Does this seem that Russia actually wants to hold peace negotiations?
Well, I think I'm not going to surprise anybody if I say that I'm very skeptical about Russia's intention to actually have peace. There have been many opportunities for them to show goodwill and even agree on a ceasefire. There were discussions about energy ceasefire, and yet they have been attacking energy facilities, including last night the heat and electricity production facilities in Kyiv. So I think their intentions are very clear. They have to be pushed and pressed into wanting peace. And just want to say, indeed, it's the coldest day. It was, I think, minus 23 at 6 in the morning. And it's symbolic walking by this wall of heroes that sacrificed already for this country, and now is actually regular residents of Kyiv suffering terrible heat shortages and without electricity. So no, in summary, I don't think that Russia is showing any interest in peace.
Then what do you think is the point of those peace talks that are currently happening while Russians bomb freezing Kyiv?
Well, I think that the point is to actually show them both the security guarantees that the US, Europeans are, the coalition of the willing, are putting on the table. I think that part of the conviction mechanisms is the series of sanctions, sanctioning of their shadow fleet, which is the economic lifeline for Russia, to show that its allies stand by Ukraine and will do so, and this way to press them into coming to an agreement to stop this madness, to stop this war.
But we know Europe, for example, is obviously helping Ukraine. Europe provided generators, there's a lot of support from Europe, but also Europe is left out of the peace negotiations. And if we look at the 20-point peace plan, there's stuff that Europe must do, but nobody consulted Europe. Does Europe feel left out?
Well, I think it's a complicated architecture. We are living, apart from living through this terrible war with my Ukrainian friends and colleagues here, we're also living through huge realignment in the world security architecture, European security architecture. So I think it would be ingenious to say that everything is well aligned. Clearly, Europe needs to be at the table for the elements that concern Europe and for the future well-being of Ukraine, because Ukraine's future is in Europe. We are tied together, and I think there is a lot of consultation together, and there is a lot of consultation and discussions between the US and the coalition of the willing, etc.
Still, because what's happening, it doesn't look like the US is actually interested in what Europe thinks.
Well, but there are consultations and discussions at every level, and then there is also the performative piece. So clearly there are discussions that are taking place in public, and there are discussions taking place behind closed doors. But this current piece of negotiations is indeed taking place between the US, Ukraine and Russia, and I think it's actually good that the Ukrainians and Russians are confronting each other directly and not only talking via an intermediary.
And one of the 20-point peace plan points basically is that Ukraine joins the European Union. In the early format, it was by 2027. Do you think it's possible?
Well, the intention is clearly for Ukraine to join the European Union, and that's the intention on both sides. I think that putting an exact date, especially this close a date, poses risks, but I think that this is all that's hotly debated right now, and it will also depend on the dynamics of the peace negotiations and how the war will end. But there are certainly processes that existed before, and question whether one should revisit the ways of doing things in light of the new geopolitical developments. So I would not want to speculate on an exact date, but these are active discussions in Brussels and in the European capitals on how to go about it.
But is it possible to fast track this process like Ukraine is willing?
Well, I think fast tracking also implies doing reforms fast, and I think Ukraine has shown its ability to mobilize its reform effort and actually carry out reforms while fighting a war. So I think if there was an opportunity to really accelerate the reforms, there are ways of looking at the process itself. I mean, the one thing needs to be clear is that it's not only Ukraine, it's other countries as well that are trying to join the EU. So obviously whatever new process happens would have to apply to everybody just because of basic fairness. But I think there is scope to look at how to reinvent the whole mechanism, but I would not want to speculate right now exactly how, because these are active discussions at the moment.
Concerning Europe, the US has been, well, not really constant in what they want, how they see this war ending. If the US leaves and stops any kind of negotiations, stops providing intelligence support to Ukraine, is it possible for Ukraine to continue this fight with Europe?
Well, first I would like to say that Europe and the US have been allies for 80 years, and I strongly believe it's in the interest of both sides to keep the alignment and keep the fellowship we have had. Clearly we hit a rough patch right now, and there are disagreements, but I think it's in the interest of both sides to overcome those. And I think there is a lot of political constituency also in the US that see Europe as its key ally. I'm not saying it's everybody, but
still,
I think so, certainly on the Hill and in different political circles. But I think increasingly we have seen the reports about the French supply of intelligence to a large degree, and I think that we better are able to stand it alone as well. I think that Europe has already shown a tremendous support. We are the ones who are financing practically single-handedly Ukraine's budget and public services, as well as supporting the military with a lot of the equipment. There is some equipment that is only available in the US or elsewhere, but we found mechanism how to get that to Ukraine as well. So I hope we will not be tested on this.
I can bet my money we will, unfortunately.
But I hope we are certainly up to it.
So if the US stops intelligence sharing, Europe can supply Ukraine with enough.
Look, I cannot speculate on that. Part of the beauty of intelligence is that very few people actually know what they are talking about. So I don't want to speculate on that, but I think that a lot of the capabilities, whether all, I don't know, but I think a lot of the capabilities can be compensated.
How about air defense? Because again, today is another day of another major attack on Kyiv. There's a few buildings hit in downtown Kyiv, and President Zelensky has been vocal in saying that we don't have enough air defense. And the problem here is because the US doesn't supply Patriot missiles, Patriot systems. So can Europe step up in this sense?
Well, most of the Patriot systems that you're anyway getting from European countries, Germany being the first and foremost. It's US equipment, but still a lot of it is the one that is sourced in already in Europe. Air defense is clearly one of the weakest points overall, and we just have to try to do better. Plus, you have a very fast increasing production of interceptors that are helping very much, at least on the drone side, and hopefully soon also on the missile end of things.
Yeah. Recently, President Zelensky spoke in Davos, and he was pretty harsh on Europe. And in Ukraine and around the world, there's a lot of complaints that Europe is really slow, that Europe is doing enough for Ukraine to stay alive, but not enough for Ukraine to win the war. Do you agree with this statement? And what possibly Europe can do more to actually see Ukraine win this war?
Well, it's interesting that it very much depends on your vantage point. If you look at the EU and its decision making from a perspective, if you compare it to a federal state like the United States, you will always be disappointed because it's not a federal state. It's a confederation of 27, and all the issues that are now very relevant for Ukraine, which is foreign policy, military and security, are not decided at the level of the 27, but that has to be consensus. There is no supranational element to that. Unlike the United States, where all of that is decided at the federal level. Let's not forget, at the federal level, United States controls around 26% of its GDP. In Europe, it's about 1.5%. So it depends how you judge Europe. Are you judging it from a prism of federal state? Then you sure will be disappointed. Compare the European Union to United Nations or other bodies that are of intergovernmental nature, and you see a different picture. So I understand the frustration. I sometimes feel it myself that we could be faster. I think European leaders say the same things, but Europe decides by searching consensus. It takes time, but then we are the most predictable, most reliable.
So it's the most predictable, but the slowest.
The most predictable, the most reliable, and the biggest supporter and partner to Ukraine. So let's not forget, yes, some decisions come slower, but let me repeat, the most predictable, the most reliable, and the biggest.
You're repeating President Macron in this one.
No, but it's the reality.
Yeah, but for example, the recent, since we mentioned Macron, President Zelensky said that the French will have to free the shadow tanker because there is no actually laws that can force European states to keep the shadow tankers at bay. This is one of the biggest problems right now, the shadow fleet that allows Russia to export its oil. Can there be a sweep of European action in this direction? Can there be a nationwide ban on shadow tankers?
Well, it is nationwide always, right? So it depends on the nation by nation. The EU plays a coordinating role, and the shadow fleet is part of the listings in the sanctions. I think by the 19th package of sanctions, roughly 550 vehicles have already been listed. There are more to come into the list when the 20th package of sanctions is approved. But the enforcement of that is based on the national legislation of member states, because sanctions fall under the unanimity rule. And again, what do we compare it to? European Union nation states are bound by constraints of rule of law and enforcement. You have actors who may not look at that the same way. So what do you compare it to?
Well, again, after 19 sanction packages, Russia is still able to wage this war, and it still has enough money to continue killing Ukrainians and shooting missiles like today at Kyiv. So obviously in Ukraine there's a lot of people who are thinking, okay, does those sanctions work, or what's even the point of sanctions?
Well, I think the sanctions do work, and there is very clearly a visible deterioration on the Russian side, but we need to continue and we need to do more.
And then with my last question, what more can Europe do? What concrete steps have to be taken for this war to actually end?
Press Russia stronger and work with the alliances and the allies to push them together to stop. Equip Ukraine. We have just approved 90 billion euros to help Ukraine with providing budget stability and public services, as well as equip the army. Significant portion of the financing will go to build Ukrainian miltech, Ukrainian industry, and that's what we need to do. Press Russia and equip and strengthen Ukraine. And that's what we are doing.
Only a few hours before an interview with the European ambassador here in downtown Kyiv, Russia again attacked the Ukrainian capital with missiles and drones. It's -20 outside, and Russia attacked energy infrastructure in the Ukrainian capital, leaving a third of Kyiv residents without electricity and also multiple apartment buildings without heating. We will always be here in Ukraine to cover what's happening. We're on the ground and we got you covered. If you feel that our work deserves support, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent. To get more information on what's happening in Ukraine, also please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for your support.